Hey, everyone. Dr. Lisa here, Lisette Alvarez-Holland, founder of Mind Body Enterprises, coming to you with another episode of Owning Her Health. On today's episode, we are going to be speaking of AI care and the systems that we forgot to design. And I am seeing this a lot in terms of trying to support. Let me fix that. We're talking about AI care and what are we doing when the systems were not properly set up for us, because that's really where we're at right now in terms of that. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a clinician turned of working in leadership development. I stopped doing clinical work because I saw the root of where we need to go in terms of empowering our women, especially the women who are creating that care economy that holds everything up. We need to make sure not only is she intact, which is to some extent what I used to speak about on this podcast, but we need to pivot to the actual, what are we going to do with these systems? They're all broken down. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a clinician turned, honestly, working in leadership development. I stopped doing clinical work because I saw the root of where we need to go in terms of empowering our women, especially the women who are creating that care economy that holds everything up. We need to make sure not only is she intact, which is to some extent what I used to speak about on this podcast, but we need to pivot to the actual, what are we going to do with these systems? They're all broken down. We went through a period, most of my life, Gen X, with tear it down, tear down the patriarchy, tear down the, I want my way in the door table. So you right now are upset because you created your own utopia. This was 20 years ago for me, and my mindset on it was 25 years ago. And really you were doing it because you couldn't find, you got in those rooms, you got that job, you got that career, you got that paycheck that everybody was promising you, and it wasn't working in owning your health. It wasn't working in owning your life. You weren't being the CEO of your life. And so that is because as we were evolving, we were forgetting to design the system. And I always say this about third wave feminism. And if you have not listened to my podcast before, you can go off and listen to, I think it's 96 or 97 episodes where I was speaking with women who had flipped the pain, turned that into a passion project and a self-promotion, right? But it was for their own well-being. And then they saw the value in that and created a utopia, created a system for themselves to operate their career that would be of benefit and allow them to stay on track with their leadership, with their relationships, and still be in an enterprising design. I can tell you right off the bat, many of us would have loved to work within the infrastructure from where we came. I brought my systems to the big, Novant healthcare system. The same way I bought my systems in the early 2000s, yoga, I started a wellness thing, but I was working in a small clinic. They allowed me to come in and be assistant wellness director and help them end up making a rehab gym and everything else that blossomed from those seeds I initiated with that initial class of yoga for, people with muscular sclerosis, which was a lot of women. That turned into the mind over body pain conversation. That then turned into the belly guru. That then turned into my place because, number one, I had left New York knowing that I wanted to kind of take a step back, but I still wanted to contribute in my community. And this is a story for many, many women That's what the care economy is. We've been designing these systems. We didn't forget to design these systems. The system at large didn't forget to design these systems. We just forgot that they were never designing the systems for us. The oligarchs and the Gilded Age of the 1920s that our current number 47 president desperately wants us to go back to. In fact, they want us going back to like the 1800s. That kind of world of big oil and textiles again and creating things and like, it's not going to work. We don't have the Americans. We've tasted what the rest of the world wants. And we also know there's nothing in what we've classified as the global South that while it works very well for the dominating predator class that now, has taken hold and wants to invaginate and rip the resources out of, we want no part of that. At least those who I'm speaking to here on the Owning Her Health podcast. So let me say something, like I said, it's very uncomfortable, like I said in the introduction. We're not failing at AI as women. We're just making sure that, especially if we're in healthcare and well-being, and we actually were listening to the functional medicine, and we actually saw the impact of social media, and we are watching our children, Gen we have even alphas, and we're an older parent right now. We're watching them struggle in what we created. And any woman who's in that situation is going to say, I need to course correct. That's not the mentality of many men. That's not the conditioning of masculinity. You go and you fight. If you got to the top of the mountain and you were alone, then you just look for another mountain to climb. We're done with that crap. Like, let us play in the valley. Let us create community. Let us communicate and connect those two mountains. And that's always been the place of the maternal force. Instead of saying what we did was trying to clean out what we didn't like inside a system, we kind of hung out in the house of the oppressor and the suppressors, and we kind of got comfortable. And many marginalized communities have done the same. There is a time now where that whole system's going to fall. And so anybody who is an early adopter in seeing the shingles falling off the walls, understood that, what, we have these wonderful little perfect utopias. Everybody seems to be okay. But then what happens to the person when they leave? We were seeing the breakdowns in those types of things. What we were seeing was the breakdown in community. And that was very, very much designed. That was by a design. And so what I'm doing now when we're looking at, shoving AI in everything, I have a big desire, just like I did back in the times I was watching the whole competitiveness and the personal development of the 80s and Tony Robbins and the business and the leadership, moving all of this athletes into like primal culture and primal diets and all of. I was like, that's not going to work on a design of a woman's body. Don't stick me in a cold tank and at 5 o'clock in the morning when I've been up with my kids since till 3 o'clock. Like, we work on cycles, and it's not by design for the system, and the system may not appreciate that, but that's only because they don't appreciate what works in our systems. We've been designing this a long time. When I made Mind Body Enterprises, after I closed shop on Belly Guru, because the system was not designed for me to keep that going while I was going through massive financial infidelity that I had to clean up things on, that I was dealing with a lot of things we're dealing with now, the breakdown in the patriarchy, all of that. I've spoken to that on my reintroducing myself video that you can get on Mind Body Enterprises, a new YouTube channel that I've kind of taken myself from my Dr. Lisa stuff and started a new YouTube channel. You can see the introduction show for all of that background. But my point is, the real question for this episode of Owning Her Health is what happens when we do start realizing I know how to scale a system. That scaling a system does not mean I'm making a multi-millionaire enterprise. I am scaling a system in my household. I am scaling a system in my small clinic. There is value in that. I have been scaling systems in nonprofits and volunteer work and all of that. I've been scaling systems now. Some of us are moving into our maven eras and our matriarch roles of grandparenting. That's scaling the system, but the limitations in the bigger system. You don't want to scale that system. You are creating new infrastructure. And we've been trying to operate on this and having a lot of people undervalued, underpaid, underutilized for way too long. And my conversation right now, a big part of my conversation in the frameworks that I speak of, the biospiritual, ecology, and then the ecological economics, are all the Kirby hustle. I was speaking to that somewhat as I was transitioning from being the belly guru into, creating the Goddess Wisdom Mastermind, which was talking about the business of healthcare for people that are normally not comfortable doing that. Number one, women. Number two, people involved in women's health. Number three, people involved in sort of the mind, body, somatic trauma, yoga as a therapy, not necessarily as a fitness system. Those very uncomfortable for people who are kind of really knowing that the system is toxic, but realizing that they need to figure out the economics in their subculture, in their community. That can't just be their own profession or their own industry. Everything in the social pillars of healthcare, which would allow for the social determinants of health, have been decimated, to say the least. They are being run by a thread of hope and familiarity and like memories at this point. And so when I say, I'm here and I'm, Dr. Lisa, and my work sits at the intersection of human design, community health infrastructure, and what it actually takes to integrate technology without degrading the people in the process, I'm talking about health politics. I'm talking about policy. I'm talking about what Oracle just did with, had 20 to 30,000 of their employees wake up to an email at 6 o'clock in the morning and say, we don't need you anymore. This is your last day. That's cruel. That's cruel. That is losing the plot for where we are. But we have to remember, to them, that's not cruelty. They're not working in the same moral codes and legalities and world we're in. They have extracted themselves from it. And that's one of the things that we know in the research, that there tends to be, yes, money follows urgency. But what they don't say they've been doing for that urgency in all of that manipulative marketing and pushing, and Russell Brunson still, marketing, hey, you don't have to know a damn thing. You don't got to have a testimonial. We're still going to persuade them to buy your stuff. And your stuff may be crap. Okay? We're not working at that interface between people in the shared space with that mentality. And there's a lot of us that are just never liked it, and therefore our economics have suffered. Our infrastructure for community economics and our ecological interfaces, meaning nature, the people around us, the spaces we hold, the companies the principles we work on, have never been able to take hold with people who are taking the time to make sure that what the research says in terms of people who tend to make more money, tend to socially isolate themselves, tend to start hoarding it in their brain. It's actually a really, manifesting is not an abundance mindset. Manifesting actually works on the principles of scarcity. And they're not teaching you that. They don't want you to really realize that, because what you want is generating. What you want is a regenerative system. And that's, for centuries, how women have worked. That's why we actually have communities and we stopped being nomadic culture. And it's time for those who understand what I just said to start working at those interfaces. So I work now because I so much understand human design. And I don't mean the human design spiritual mapping. There's a value in that. There's a beauty in that. But what that's doing is still putting us in archetypes, right? It's still putting us in boxes from which we can understand and operate from. That's wonderful for figuring out your identity. I'm saying, let's work with the people who have done that work and figured out their identity. They know they're generators. They know they want a regenerative system. Like, they pulled and extract themselves out already, and they're doing their little thing, but we can no longer work as silos anymore. And so if you're an organization like that, you're small, you don't have the money to waste. You also don't have the legal counsel to play like the big guys and just break everything until somebody tells you they don't want you doing that anymore, to the extent where you suffer consequences. We have a real big problem with that, because as we've created more millionaires than we ever had before, we sure as hell did not work on making sure that they did not follow the research of being manipulative, that dark triad type of personality that seems to be okay with the disconnect of isolating yourself and pulling yourself out of the ecosystem to the point that you feel you are an elite class, because by title, by money in your bank, by which when done in an extractive system means that you're not doing that in the mindset I'm doing it. So I'm in business, but I'm not looking to be in your business. And this was very much what I hit in healthcare, and what caused me to sort of really say, the Belly Guru is not just a side project for me to like make extra money and stay on, not pay the mommy tax and this and that. And then after my kids grow, I can build it into something. In 2011, I had already been in business for several years, but it was that side gig kind of mentality. And I really kind of came to the end of it when I was in my healthcare system. I had brought up getting onto the maternity floor, but the organization couldn't figure out how to get paid through it yet. And mind you, this is 2011. The system was looking very efficient. They thought it was very efficient for me, but they were waiting for people to come back into pelvic health and women's health in order to understand the connection between maternity and maternal health care and maternal morbidity rates, which in the states I was operating in, North and South Carolina, are still atrocious, still towards the bottom of the barrel, and were then. They just couldn't hold up under real human conditions. Like their systems of efficiency was so talking about money and economics and making sure that the department was a plus, and then my supervisor would get a bonus. And meanwhile, I was already being told there's no money for you to go and continuing ed anymore. We're cutting that. We're not giving you a raise because of such and such. It just, I saw the human interface. And at the time, the tech that was being introduced for this efficiency and supposedly helping me was EMRs, electronic medical records. And I sat there in a conversation over lunch with a pile high of notes that I didn't get to because we were still on the paper chart. So we were just only the Medicare and the Medicaid, because it's always the government first. That should tell us something. That was going to be in the systems, in the hospital system, in the hospital EMRs. And we were in a conversation the whole entire day where they were trying to integrate this. And they were also making sure that we were subliminally telling everyone that we were excellent, that is this excellent care. We were basically being taught that lunch hour how to make sure that we get a 5 out of 5 rating on excellence. And this was the Disney method on making sure that your customer care's experience is excellent. They weren't really telling me how to be more present with my clients and my patients. They obviously weren't listening to me with how I was saying to be more efficient in terms of getting women to come and bring themselves to the outpatient physical therapy department. And they sure as hell were not telling me how the hell I was going to be so efficient to make sure I didn't stay more than a half hour to do my notes because they just ate up all of my lunch period. I could see in human development. I understood already. I had been already more than 10 years. At that point, that was 2011. I had graduated physical therapy school in 95, 96, starting that. And before that, I had done athletic training. Like I said, it was very much mind over body. I all understood creating the environment for things to happen in healthcare was great, and they were kind of getting that information. But creating the environment for the people that work in healthcare to bring their best game and want to be loyal and want to make my supervisor bonus money, big, huge disconnect. I'm seeing that with AI right now. I'm seeing that problem with AI right now. I'm going to get more into that, and I invite you to the Substack, the Owning Her Health Afterglow. That is a publication that I am asking you to help me and sponsor me on. It'll pay for production of this show, but it will also give you access for us to get into roundtables. And because my audience shift now is talking about the systems, and I'm talking to the operators of those systems that could be the leaders in breaking from the bifurcation of medicine, which is under the hood of healthcare, the arm of medicine, and the arm of, let's say, allied health, community health, many more gateways, a much more horizontal system. This is where the doulas and the midwives and the yoga therapists and the wellness professionals and the peer care providers, the grandmas, the mothers, also the people that can. AI is going to create different jobs. You're not going to necessarily be boxed in. This is wonderful for women. This is exactly what mothers have needed, because we're going to now be seen for what we uniquely bring to the circumstance. And that's where we shine. That's where systems thinkers shine. That's where maternal minded people shine. And I don't just mean you had kids. I mean that you are maternal, meaning that you centralize your effort around care and around systems that protect and provide for the most vulnerable, not your personal power and your personal authority and that dominating winner takes all type of, everyone will be okay if the king is okay. That's where the patriarchy has taken the paternal, but that's not even where paternity was. And the only people that are going to be able to extract and regenerate what the paternal authority really can be is going to be the people who are owning their maternal authority in whatever body form they are. And that doesn't mean we're making them feminine, because that's the conversation. What it means is that we are caring again. We're going to put humanity back into the social pillars of health, because then we have the social determinants of health taken care of. And we don't call that being a socialist or a capitalistic system. That is a humanistic system. If being humanistic and bringing humanity back and relationships back into our interactions and into, if working at the interfaces of the human experience if this is mysticism, then by all means bring back mysticism. Bring back the medicine woman. Bring back the medicine man in the communities, because they sure as hell were not going to do what's going on right now, where we're breaking everything that was working. Because a few people didn't like how it worked with them, because now they were going to have to share, right? So we don't go to our abundance in the 5A model, in the sacred success path. That hustle is curvy because sometimes we're going back to fix things, right? Sometimes we admit in our atonement or that keystone period that I was not being very accountable. I was being very responsible, but I wasn't being accountable. I now have to go back to my level of acceptance, and that's not me be going backwards. That's me going forward. And so, if this conversation is interesting to you, that's the place we're going to play with the collision between AI advancement and human capacity. And more importantly, it requires minds that are designing differently, designing leadership differently, designing corporate culture differently, designing culture, the ecology around just human beings differently, parenting differently. It's not being anti-tech. It's that we know the tech is designed to make us a bunch of addicts. We know that the tech is designed to push out human beings and pushing us back into human doings. When we're aware of the game and the playbook that is the repeat playbook, they just interact it with a different ball. Instead of using a football, it's a soccer ball now, okay? Then we're going to organically design something different, but we're not going to worry about getting permissions from medicine if we're in healthcare. We're going to say, if I have direct access and I understand the medical model, I'm going to now become the gateway in towards you, and I'm going to decide that I refer to you, and that's it. Period, end of sentence. What do I need to do that right now? I'm doing it right now. I'm speaking to you. I'm inspiring somebody. I'm then saying, hey, if you need help with that, hire me. Because the real problem, and this is the part it's very easy to miss, you don't need another business system integrated. You need a human systems integrator, such as myself, to look at what you have. What are the platforms you're on? Where are the deficits? Where was the tech never meeting the human interfaces as it is? We were going to rearrange instead of replace, and we're going to optimize that place to be a place everybody loves to work. And if we do have people that were hired that do not fit their role, we either have another role that AI creates for them, or they're gone because they never should have been hired in the first place. Not because AI came in and took their job. It's because they were proving that they don't really match the role they were put in. And that's on us. So most organizations are approaching AI as a tool implementation problem, meaning like you're not using this thing because you don't know where to use it. And when they're bringing it in, they're thinking of it, you can increase your thought put, meaning your outcomes, like you can make more marketing, you could make your blog for SEO or whatever like that. They're not realizing, am I making sure the employees are not feeling like I did back in 2011 when they were trying to upgrade us. First was on the computers, right? First was on the computers in the 90s, and then it was, okay, we have you on this big epic, interactive communication system between our departments. Now we're going to bring in the notes to make sure that there's not just like people who are data integrators, but we're going to cut that out, and we're going to say, let's make the employees put it into the system themselves. And now AI can stop me having to do that, which is great. But if the deficit was that while I was doing that, I stopped operating in a way of understanding relationships, I stopped really kind of diagnosing an ideal concierge plan because I was stuck in insurance bundled CPT codes and DRGs, all this mumbo jumbo of care bundles, which is what stopped me being able to literally say, hey, let's do a pelvic floor checkout for every woman that gives birth through, maybe we could talk to insurance companies, but just in general, let's use this as a marketing tactic to say, when you come here, it's a better maternal health experience. They couldn't even understand that because they couldn't see the dollar bills moving between the departments. And so this is where we are with AI. It's just, again, the same playbook, the same thing we go through. It's even where we are, and it's the same playbook we play politically. We all know where this is going to go. When you have an authoritarian regime come in and they break everything that was working and they want to take over everything and they just push everybody to the limits, like, we know we're going to get a revolution. Can we just skip to the best part now? Can we skip to the best part where we either all die and do ourselves in, or we have the revolution and then we get to start again? What I'm saying is, let's not wait till then. Let's understand what's really happening, not scare ourselves, and see. I don't want to necessarily, maybe my small business model, and I guarantee that if you're in women's health, pelvic health in particular, you're not worried about people needing you. You're not connecting in some way efficiently that maybe an AI automation can work with. Maybe your front desk can become, you can use that woman or man who's really great at connecting with the individual in the waiting rooms more, because the other things are being done. We're gonna say, I'm not going to assume your system is sound enough to plug in AI the way that they're selling it to you right now, as a big marketing platform or as a back office, thing that's going to do all your billing. I don't think that's where your problem is. Because in most cases, yes, that's a problem to scale. That's a solution to scale, I should say, but that wasn't your problem. In most cases, what we're actually seeing is this: workflows that already depended on overextension in the team someplace, probably because of poor integrations of technologies before, or constraints economically. They'll say less time with people, or you left the system. You left the legacy system, and now you say, my problem was too little time to do the work I needed to do with people, and they only have 6 visits on their insurance. So you said, I'm going to give you more care in 6 visits, and it's going to end up actually spending less of your money, even though it's out of pocket, because we're going to get you to the point where you don't have any of those secondary consequences. We actually improve other things that I never could get to in the clinic. That is still overextending on that solopreneur. That still is inefficient. You have more time, but when you're filling that time with too many things you're not going to get paid for, or you're then placing yourself as to be a luxury design, you lost the point. You lost the whole point of the game. Okay? The problem is maybe leadership structure as it is doesn't fully account for how people actually function inside that office, because the person who was made the director was just a really great clinician who always came in time and was such, the belle of the ball, and we decided to make them administration. Again, doesn't make any sense, but this is what happens across healthcare and care systems all the time. Why do hospitals really only invest in getting an MBA for their MDs, or maybe now their RNs? Because there's so little MDs, they're allowing for there to be new professions such as NPs, nurse practitioners, and they're giving their RNs who go on to get their doctorates or their MBAs some support. It's a very insular thing. It's never included allied health. Allied health should not even be in the hospital model. Allied health in the hospital model is a very different profession. You are there to walk and talk people, to move them through the system, and you just want the paycheck for that. That is very different than the person who's outside really wanting to redesign things, build as an accelerator. So what happens? Right? Because I want to keep these Owning Her Health episodes as more of the introduction that we can get deeper into the Substack. There's a private podcast there where we can talk about how to actually apply this into your life. I just want to shake you a little bit and say, you don't have to have the legacy models functioning well for us to just say, well, at some point, somebody's tooth is going to fall out. Somebody's going to still break a leg, and they're going to be denied access there. And guess what? You know where they're going to go back? To their homes, and they're going to go back to their abuelas, and they're going to go back to their town's, person that knows, the how to help with pain. And unfortunately, when we do that in places that we're not supporting the social undercurrents of care economics and the social determinants of health, they were sold drugs and became drug addicts and started a whole other industry. We're not going to let that happen. Not in the words of Gen X. Nobody pushes baby in the corner. Nobody puts baby in the corner. That's what the line was. We're not going back in the corner. We're not going in the corner. We've had a taste of it. We can do this differently. Until they shut down our tech, and until they take away all our food, and until we have no land, and we have no pots, and we have no terraces, like if the 1920s and the 1930s, after a crash, from the same mindset of extraction by very wealthy people, many of whose family is still in charge of trying to bring this back again. Okay, they're just bringing in the cronies that will help them on an international level. If we could figure it out at those times, if the Reconstruction era, even though those pockets of beautifully up and coming neighborhoods by people who were excluded, by the Black community that was excluded, even though they were burned down, and we didn't get it in the textbooks, and they wanted to rewrite history, we still know the story. It was passed on through voice. So until they slash our throats, they hang up, all the things. If you think about that, right? The chokings, the nooses, all of that, that was to shut us up. Not just kill us. It was very representative, and we literally have people in Congress right now with a noose clip. Start looking at your congressmen's clips. Okay, they're not having the American flag there anymore. They're putting things on their body. They're showing that where they're going with this. What do? We get faster in the dysfunction. We might not get the transformation. I don't know how much pushback we're going to go, but I will tell you right now, the pattern that most people miss isn't new. We've seen it before. It's been in a different context. Before AI entered the conversation, I was working in community health through the model of the Belly Guru. What I was doing at the time looked very unconditional, unconventional, and this is going to look very unconventional. Group-based wellness models, community embedded delivery instead of clinic-centered care, and early uses of technologies to expand access. We're going to do all of that now with AI, except we're going to make sure the human systems and the human interfaces are expanded, not extracted from. So if that's you, want to hear the rest of where we can go, I invite you over to the Substack. I will put the link in the show notes on my YouTube. You can interact with me, fill out for a proposal. What a proposal is, I'm not locking you into any damn thing. I'm actually just asking you some questions so that I can have this conversation personally with you. I welcome you to think of sponsoring the Substack, because that allows me then to invest in the people who are invested in this conversation. It's not just being nice to me and helping me, make some money. It's supporting the infrastructure right now. If you enable me to have FU money, I'm going to do a lot better with it. I'm going to do a lot more for you with that money. So I will take it. I would love if you'd be one of my founding sponsors over there, even on a monthly basis. That's more economical and supporting the infrastructure, the financial, the ecological economics. I am a practice what I preach person. And you can email me at the office email, mindbodyoffice7@gmail. You can and I will get you in touch with a person who, I'm not lying. You can go look at things online on my other YouTube. You could just look me up, see me on another podcast. This is who I've always been. This is not me trying to sell you a damn thing other than to enroll you in supporting me if you're not supporting it yourself. And if you are, I want to know about you, because I will put you on the private podcast. We will have a roundtable and I will elevate you. Nobody gets left behind. Okay? So if you enjoyed this episode, thank you very much for being part of the Owning Her Health community. I hope I see you over in the Substack. While I was getting myself back on track and rebooting this podcast, a lot of that is free access right now. Sharing. They're literally here to create those care economics again, that community health. They really do want to see how they can pivot, because a lot of us have been pushed out. Like I said, the medicine women now are maybe coming from places of economics. We need that in community. The care economics is not just healthcare. That was the model of medicine that was teaching you sickness, making money off sickness, and therefore diagnostics. And every place they want to put AI right now in that subculture is diagnostics and robotics and basically doing the surgeries for you. If you want to make sure you have a thing to do and you think that AI is not coming for you in that way, the oligarchs and the healthcare providers have already that are on that road, the owners of private equity, the people that let private equity in, the people that let the drug manufacturers make doctors into drug pushers, all of that buy-in, we've already established. Like, that's been for years. Our venture capitalist overtake of the corporate healthcare model, the industrialized Western healthcare model, is the health insurance company. They're venture capitalists. They're private equities. We just have to have all this conversation. So if you want to see where to connect the dots, that's going to be over at the Substack. That's going to be over in the private conversations. But I do welcome you for being here. And if you enjoy the show, please share this. Please definitely interact with us as much as you can, either in the comments here or the inner circle over on the Substack. Thank you so much for being here. This is Dr. Lisa, and we will see you next time on another episode of Owning Her Health.